Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of my Dwarf Paladin Hardcore Let's Play series in World of Warcraft Classic, where, of course, we only have one life, so if you die from any means, we are dead forever. And last episode, we made it to Loch Modan and we completed a bunch of the different quests around here, and we went to Elven Forest and Westfall, where I didn't do too much in Elven Forest and mostly just ran through it, but I did a bunch of quests in Westfall, where today it's going to be a very similar episode to last episode, where I want to go ahead and continue my explorations of Loch Modan and potentially even complete it all. And then I also want to continue my explorations in Westfall all the way down here in the Kingdom of Stormwind, and then probably head over to Redridge Mountains, which is very red with death, and do some of the quests around here. And then at the end of the episode, I may potentially do something fun, or I may just go ahead and call the episode good. We'll see how I feel towards the end. And as we go on all these adventures, I want to continue reading the lore documents that I have been reading, which I will link down in the description as we continue to explore some of the lore and story of Azeroth. But at the start of this episode, I want to go ahead and journey towards the eastern side of Loch Modan, where there are a few enemies in front of us that we can go ahead and fight through and get some experience. But we have 2 quest markers over here, and then one really cool area that I want to explore, where I'll mention up here there is a massive ogre camp that is the elite area in this location, and there's another elite quest right over here where you can kill an elite bear, and I am probably going to be skipping both of those, where this ogre area is just a basic ogre compound, and you'll probably see me run like past it on the screen at some point. But just a bunch of high level ogres, including like a boss that you can fight inside of a cave, and there are a few other caves around there, and it's just a scary spot that I probably won't be going to, where we can run along the loch here, where we are right on the shore and can go in the water and then come out of the water, where we have a couple of dwarves here who we will interact with in the future. But I mostly just want to head out this way, where we have an excavation site here with a bunch of trogs, and then kind of going back to a little bit of what I was talking about last episode, we have Bingles Blastenheimer, who has quests that we explored and whom we talked to on our human mage character all the way back in my human mage playthrough, who we can go ahead and chat with, and I will go ahead and try to do those quests, but they are kind of scary quests, so maybe I'll skip those too. Maybe we will be doing a bunch of mob grinding this episode. But we have this excavation site right here, which is a really cool location with these massive walls, and of course we have Magmar Philhue, who we can talk to. And these quests specifically right here are a little bit higher level than what I am wanting to do right now, so we will come back for these quests, but I'll go ahead and pick them up just so we have them in our quest log, where I'll have like 10 out of 20 of the quests, where this one is just to go back to Thelsamar, so we can go ahead and do that. But I'll leave the excavation site and these level 19 orange colored trogs right there, and I'll go ahead and come over here to this crashed airplane that was used by Bingos Blastenheimer as he was doing like recon over this area or whatever, and it crashed onto the shore of the loch right there, where I'll probably have to kill a cliff lurker or 2 as I journey this way. Hello Bingos, I can go ahead and chat with you, and we can complete this quest and then pick up that quest to go fight some of the trogs on the island in the loch here, and we can go ahead and get his supplies that are missing. But I've come to the excavation site and to this crashed airplane, so let's go ahead and come up to the final area that I was wanting to explore at the very start of this episode, where we have a very interesting area where it is a hunting lodge, which is kind of cool in its own right, but specifically it is called the Farstrider Lodge, which the Farstriders are a group of high elves, and now in like modern day World of Warcraft they're blood elves, but they were high elves who were like the rangers, like the hunters of the kingdom of Quel'Thalas, and they have a lodge all the way out here, which isn't really controlled by like the high elves of Quel'Thalas anymore, especially since like the devastation that happened to Quel'Thalas during Warcraft 3, but we see that they still have a lodge over here that does have a high elf in it who is allied with the Alliance still, and there are a bunch of Alliance NPCs in here, so we can go ahead fight this blizzard, and we can kind of explore this area, which is really cool looking. And if you have been watching all my Let's Play series, and hopefully if you continue watching this one, if I get to that point, you will recognize that this building kind of looks like a Night Elf building, where it is very similar in design to that, because they kind of just use a lot of Night Elf assets for the High Elves, which when we run into here, you can kind of see what I mean, where we have Viren Swiftwind right here, who is a High Elf that looks kind of similar to Night Elf in the classic version of the game, but is pale skinned instead of like purple skinned, and she looks honestly pretty cool. I kind of like the old High Elf models, but she gets updated in the Burning Crusade to look like a Blood Elf, and we can chat with her. Welcome to the Farstrider Lodge off this, and she is just a really cool character who is a High Elf of Quel'Thalas, and she used to be a Farstrider, and she's kind of like the owner of this lodge. But of course there are some different humans and some different dwarves around here, where I can go ahead and chat with this guy, which I'm not actually I could go ahead and do that, or maybe I won't. I'll come back for you in a bit, but we can go ahead and come over here and we can pick up the Croclist hunting quest, where I'm hesitant to pick this one up because it is a timed quest where we only have 15 minutes to complete the quest, but this one is not timed, so we will be able to just do this at our own pace. But with that, I've explored these three main areas that I wanted to explore, where we have some Trogs up here, some Trogs up here, some Ogres up here, and a quest up here for a very cool quest chain that I can begin doing that is going to take us into the Wetlands as well as we level up, and we can even do our Croclist hunting in the Wetlands if we wanted to. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and continue talking about the lore of World of Warcraft, and we can go ahead and do some quests in Loch Modan and in other zones. The Dark Portal and the Fall of Stormwind, 0 years after the opening of the Dark Portal, a book located in Blasted Lands, Swampus Arls, Redridge Mountains, Stormwind City, and Scholomance. As Kil'jaeden prepared the Horde for its invasion of Azeroth, Medivh continued to fight for his soul against Sargeras. Keen Lane, the noble monarch of Stormwind, grew wary of the darkness which seemed to taint the spirit of his former friend. Keen Lane shared his concerns with Anduin Lothar, the last descendant of the Arathi bloodline, whom he named his lieutenant at arms. Even so, neither man could have imagined that Medivh's slow descent into madness would bring about the horrors that were to come. As a final incentive, Sargeras promised to bestow great power upon Gul'dan if he agreed to lead the Horde to Azeroth. Through Medivh, Sargeras told the warlock that he could become a living god if he found the undersea tomb where the guardian Egwin had placed Sargeras' crippled body nearly 1,000 years before. Gul'dan agreed and decided that once the denizens of Azeroth were beaten, he would find the legendary tomb and claim his reward. Assured that the Horde would survive his purposes, Sargeras ordered the invasion to begin. Through a joint effort, Medivh and the warlocks of the Shadow Council opened the dimensional gateway known as the Dark Portal. The portal bridged the distance between Azeroth and Draenor, and it was large enough that armies might pass through it. Gul'dan dispatched orc scouts through the portal to survey the lands which they would conquer. The returning scouts assured the Shadow Council that the world of Azeroth was ripe for the taking. Still convinced that Gul'dan's corruption would destroy his people, Durotan spoke out against the warlocks once more. The brave warrior claimed that warlocks were destroying the purity of the orcish spirit, and that this reckless invasion would be their doom. Gul'dan, unable to risk killing such a popular hero, was forced to exile Durotan and his Frostwolf clan into the far reaches of this new world. After the exiled Frostwolves charged through the portal, only a few orc clans followed. These orcs quickly set up a base of operations within the Black Morass, a dark and swampy area far to the east of the Kingdom of Stormwind. As the orcs began to branch out and explore the new lands, they came into immediate conflict with the human defenders of Stormwind. Though these skirmishes usually ended quickly, they did much to illustrate the weaknesses and strengths of both rival species. Lane and Lothar were never able to gather accurate data of the orcs' numbers, and could only guess at how great a force they would have to contend with. After a few years, the majority of the orcish horde had crossed into Azeroth, and Gul'dan deemed that the time for their primary strike against humanity had come. The horde launched its full might against the unsuspecting kingdom of Stormwind. As the forces of Azeroth and the horde clashed across the kingdom, internal conflicts began to take their toll on both armies. Keen Lane, who believed the bestial orcs to be incapable of conquering Azeroth, contemptuously held his position at his capital of Stormwind. However, Sir Lothar became convinced that the battle should be taken directly to the enemy, and he was forced to choose between his convictions and his loyalty to the king. Choosing to follow his instincts, Lothar stormed Medivh's tower fortress of Karazhan with the help of the wizard's young apprentice, Khadgar. Khadgar and Lothar succeeded in vanquishing the possessed guardian, whom they confirmed to be the source of the conflict. By killing Medivh's body, Lothar and the young apprentice inadvertently banished the spirit of Sargeras to the abyss. As a consequence, the pure, virtuous spirit of Medivh was allowed to live on and wander the astral plane for many years to come. Although Medivh had been defeated, the Horde continued to dominate the defenders of Stormwind. As the Horde's victory drew nearer, Orgrim Doomhammer, one of the greatest orc chieftains, began to see the depraved horde that had spread throughout the clans since their time in Draenor. His old comrade, Durotan, returned from exile and warned him yet again of Gul'dan's treachery. In speedy retribution, Gul'dan's assassins murdered Durotan and his family, leaving only his infant son alive. Unknown to Doomhammer was the fact that Durotan's infant son was found by the human officer Aedelus Blackmore and taken as a slave. That infant orc would one day rise to become the greatest leader his people would ever know. Incensed by Durotan's death, Orgrim set out to free the Horde from demonic corruption and ultimately assumed the royal war chief of the Horde by killing Gul'dan's corrupt puppet, Blackhand. Under his decisive leadership, the relentless Horde finally laid siege to Stormwind Keep. King Lane had severely underestimated the might of the Horde, and he watched helplessly as his kingdom fell to the green-skinned invaders. Ultimately, King Lane was assassinated by one of the Shadow Council's finest killers, the half-orc, Garona. Lothar and his warriors, returning home from Karazhan, hoped to stem the loss of life and save their once glorious homeland. Instead, they returned too late and found their beloved kingdom in smoking ruins. The orcish horde continued to ravage the countryside and claim the surrounding lands for its own. Forced into hiding, Lothar and his companions swore a grim oath to reclaim their homeland at any cost. The Alliance of Lordaeron, 6 years after the Dark Portal opened, a lore book located in Duskwood, Stormwind City, Dune Moral, Ironforge, and the Hellsbred foothills. Lord Lothar rallied the remnants of Azeroth's armies after their defeat at Stormwind Keep, and then launched a massive exodus across the sea to the northern kingdom of Lordaeron. Convinced that the Horde would overcome all of humanity if left unchecked, the leaders of the 7 human nations met and agreed to unite in what would become known as the Alliance of Lordaeron. For the first time in nearly 3,000 years, the disparate nations of Aerthor were once again united under a common banner. Appointed as Supreme Commander of the Alliance forces, Lord Lothar prepared his armies for the coming of the Horde. Aided by his lieutenants, Uther the Lightbringer, Admiral Dalen Proudmoore, and Turalyon, Lothar was able to convince Lordaeron's demi-human races of the impending threat as well. The Alliance succeeded in gaining the support of the stoic dwarves of Ironforge and a small number of High Elves of Quel'Thalas. The elves, led at that time by Anastarian Sunstrider, were largely uninterested in the coming conflict. However, they were duty-bound to aid Lothar because he was the last descendant of the Arathi bloodline, which had aided the elves in ages past. The Horde, now led by War Chief Doomhammer, brought in ogres from its homeworld of Draenor and conscripted the disenfranchised Amani Forest trolls into its fold. Setting out on a massive campaign to overrun the dwarf kingdom of Modan and the southern reaches of Lordaeron, the Horde effortlessly decimated all opposition. The epic battles of the Second War ranged from large-scale naval skirmishes to massive aerial dogfights. Somehow, the Horde had unearthed a powerful artifact known as the Demon Soul and used it to enslave the ancient dragon queen, Alexstrasza. Threatening to destroy her precious eggs, the Horde forced Alexstrasza to send her grown children to war. The noble red dragons were forced to fight for the Horde, and fight they did. The war raged across the continents of Modan, Lordaeron, and Azeroth itself. As part of its northern campaign, the Horde succeeded in burning down the borderlands of Quel'Thalas, thereby ensuring the elves' final commitment to the Alliance's cause. The greater cities and townships of Lordaeron were razed and devastated by the conflict. Despite the absence of reinforcements and overwhelming odds, Lothar and his allies succeeded in holding their enemies at bay. However, during the final days of the Second War, as the Horde's victory over the Alliance seemed almost assured, a terrible feud erupted between the 2 most powerful orcs on Azeroth. As Doomhammer prepared his final assault against the capital city of Lordaeron, An assault that would have crushed the last remnants of the Alliance, Gul'dan and his followers abandoned their posts and set out to sea. The bewildered Doomhammer, having lost nearly half of his standing forces to Gul'dan's treachery, was forced to pull back and forsake his greatest chance of victory over the Alliance. The power-hungry Gul'dan, obsessed with obtaining godhood itself, set out on a desperate search for the undersea tomb of Sargeras that he believed held the secrets of his ultimate power. Having already doomed his fellow orcs to become the slaves of the Burning Legion, Gul'dan thought nothing of his supposed duty to Doomhammer. Backed by the Stormreaver and Twilight's Hammer clans, Gul'dan succeeded in raising the tomb of Sargeras from the seafloor. However, when he opened the ancient, flooded vault, he found only crazed demons awaiting him. Seeking to punish the wayward orcs for their costly betrayal, Doomhammer sent his forces to kill Gul'dan and bring the renegades back into the fold. For his recklessness, Gul'dan was torn apart by the maddened demons he had set loose. With their leader dead, the renegade clans quickly fell before Doomhammer's enraged legions. Though the rebellion had been quelled, the Horde was unable to recoup the terrible losses it had suffered. Gul'dan's betrayal had afforded the Alliance not only hope, but also time to regroup and retaliate. Lord Lothar, seeing that the Horde was fracturing from within, gathered the last of his forces and pushed Doomhammer south, back into the shattered heartland of Stormwind. There, the Alliance forces trapped the retreating Horde within the volcanic fortress of Blackrock Spire. Though Lord Lothar fell in battle at the spire's base, his lieutenant, Trallian, rallied the Alliance forces at the 11th hour and drove the Horde back into the abysmal Swamp of Sorrows. Trallian's forces succeeded in destroying the Dark Portal, the mystical gateway that connected the orcs to their homeworld of Draenor. Cut off from its reinforcements and fractured by infighting, the Horde finally buckled in upon itself and fell before the might of the Alliance. The shattered orc clans were quickly rounded up and placed within guarded internment camps. Though it seemed that the Horde had been defeated for good, some remained highly skeptical that peace would last. Khadgar, now an archmage of some renown, convinced the Alliance High Command to build the fortress of Nethergard that would watch over the ruins of the Dark Portal and ensure that there would be no further invasions from Draenor. Aftermath of the Second War, from about 6 to 7 years after the opening of the Dark Portal. A lore book found in the Blasted Lands, Stormwind City, Scarlet Monastery, and Darnassus. The devastating Second War against the Orcish Horde left the Alliance of Lordaeron in a state of shock and disarray. The bloodthirsty orcs, led by the mighty war chief Orgrim Doomhammer, not only smashed their way through the dwarf hill lands of Khaz-Modan, but erased many of Lordaeron's central provinces as well. The unrelenting orcs even succeeded in ravaging the elves' remote kingdom of Quel'Thalas before their rampage was finally stopped. The Alliance armies led by Sir Anduin Lothar, Uther the Lightbringer, and Admiral Dalen Proudmoore pushed the orcs south into the shattered land of Azeroth, the first kingdom to fall before the orcs' ruthless onslaught. The Alliance forces under Sir Lothar managed to push Doomhammer's clans out of Lordaeron and back into the orc-controlled lands of Azeroth. Lothar's forces surrounded the orcs' volcanic citadel Blackrock Spire and laid siege to their defenses. In a last-ditch effort, Doomhammer and his lieutenants staged a daring charge from the spire and clashed with Lothar's paladins in the center of the Burning Steppes. Doomhammer and Lothar squared off in a titanic battle that left both mighty combatants shattered and drained. Though Doomhammer narrowly succeeded in vanquishing Lothar, the great hero's death did not have the effect the warchief had hoped for. Trallian, Lothar's most trusted lieutenant, took up Lothar's bloodstained shield and rallied his grief-stricken brethren for a vicious counterattack. Under the ragged standards of both Lordaeron and Azeroth, Trallian's troops slaughtered the bulk of Doomhammer's remaining forces in a glorious but terrible rout. There was nothing left for the ragged, scattered orc survivors but to flee to the last standing bastion of orcish power, the Dark Portal. Trallian and his warriors chased the remaining orcs through the festering Swamp of Sorrows and into the corrupted Blast Lands where the Dark Portal stood. There, at the foot of the colossal portal, the broken Horde and the rugged Alliance clashed in what would be the last, bloodiest battle of the Second War. Outnumbered and driven mad by the curse of their bloodlust, the orcs inevitably fell before the wrath of the Alliance. Doomhammer was taken prisoner and escorted to Lordaeron, while his broken clans were rounded up and hauled north, back to Lordaeron. Beyond the Dark Portal, from about 6 to 7 years after the opening of the Dark Portal, a lore book located in Stranglethorn Vale, Blasted Lands, Stormwind City, and Scarlet Monastery. Only a few months after Netherguard's completion, the energies of the Dark Portal coalesced and opened up a new gateway to Draenor. The remaining Orc clans, under the leadership of the Elder Shaman Ner'zhul, charged forth into Azeroth once again. Intent on stealing a number of magical artifacts that would increase Ner'zhul's power, the Orcs planned to open up new portals in Draenor that would allow them to escape their doomed Red World forever. Convinced that Ner'zhul was planning a new offensive against the Alliance, King Tyrannus of Lordaeron sent his armies into Draenor to end the Orcish threat once and for all. Led by Khadgar and General Turalyon, the Alliance forces clashed with the Orcs across the burning landscape. Even with the aid of the Elven Ranger Ilaria, the Dwarf Paladin, and the veteran soldier Daneth, Khadgar was unable to prevent Ner'zhul from opening his portals to other worlds. The tremendous, magical storms caused by the portal's converging energies began to tear the ravaged world apart. Ner'zhul, followed only by his most trusted servants, managed to escape through one of the portals as Khadgar fought desperately to return his comrades to Azeroth. Realizing that they would be trapped on the dying world, Khadgar and his companions selflessly decided to destroy the Dark Portal so that Azeroth would not be harmed by Draenor's violent destruction. By all accounts, the heroes were successful in destroying the portal and saving Azeroth, but whether or not they escaped the death throes of Draenor remains to be seen. The invasion of Draenor, from 8 years after the opening of the Dark Portal, a lore book found in Scholomance. As the fires of the Second War died down, the Alliance took aggressive steps to contain the Orcish threat. A number of large internment camps, meant to house the captive Orcs, were constructed in southern Lordaeron. Guarded by both the Paladins and the veteran soldiers of the Alliance, the camps proved to be a great success. Though the captive Orcs were tense and anxious to do battle once more, the various camp wardens, based at the old prison fortress of Durnhold, kept the peace and maintained a strong semblance of order. However, on the hellish world of Draenor, a new Orcish army prepared to strike the unsuspecting Alliance. Ner'zhul, the former mentor of Gul'dan, rallied the remaining Orc clans under his dark banner. Aided by the Shadowmoon clan, the old shaman planned to open a number of portals on Draenor that would lead the Horde to new, unspoiled worlds. To power his new portals, he needed a number of enchanted artifacts from Azeroth. To procure them, Ner'zhul reopened the Dark Portal and sent his ravenous servants charging through it. The new Horde, led by veteran chieftains such as Gromhellscream and Kilrog Deadeye of the Bleeding Hollow clan, surprised the Alliance defense forces and rampaged through the countryside. Under Ner'zhul's surgical command, the Orcs quickly rounded up the artifacts that they needed and fled back to the safety of Draenor. King Tyrannus of Lordaeron, convinced that the Orcs were preparing a new invasion of Azeroth, assembled his most trusted lieutenants. He ordered General Turalyon and the Archmage Khadgar to lead an expedition through the Dark Portal to put an end to the Orcish threat once and for all. Turalyon and Khadgar's forces marched into Draenor and repeatedly clashed with Ner'zhul's clans upon the ravaged Hellfire Peninsula. Even with the aid of the High Elf Ilaria Windrunner, the Dwarf Círdan Wildhammer, and the veteran soldier Daneth Trobane, Khadgar was unable to prevent Ner'zhul from opening his portals to other worlds. Ner'zhul finally opened his portals to other worlds, but he did not foresee the terrible price he would pay. The portal's tremendous energies began to tear the very fabric of Draenor apart. As Turalyon's forces fought desperately to return home to Azeroth, the world of Draenor began to buckle in upon itself. Gromhellscream and Kilrog Deadeye, realizing that Ner'zhul's mad plans would doom their entire race, rallied the remaining Orcs and escaped back to the relative safety of Azeroth. On Draenor, Turalyon and Khadgar agreed to make the ultimate sacrifice by destroying the Dark Portal from their side. Though it would cost their lives and the lives of their companions, they knew that it was the only way to ensure Azeroth's survival. Even as Hellscream and Deadeye hacked their way through the human ranks in a desperate bid for freedom, the Dark Portal exploded behind them. For them and the remaining Orcs on Azeroth, there would be no going back. Ner'zhul and his loyal Shadowmoon clan passed through the largest of the newly created portals as massive volcanic eruptions began to break Draenor's continents apart. The burning seas rose up and roiled the shattered landscape as the tortured world was finally consumed in a massive, apocalyptic explosion. The birth of the Lich King, from around 8 to 19 years after the opening of the Dark Portal. A lore book found in Duskwood, Hellsbrad Foothills, Scholomance, and Stratholme. Ner'zhul and his followers entered the Twisting Nether, the ethereal plane that connects all other worlds scattered throughout the Great Dark beyond. Unfortunately, Kil'jaeden and his demonic minions were waiting for them. Kil'jaeden, who had sworn to take vengeance on Ner'zhul for his prideful defiance, slowly tore the old shaman's body apart, piece by piece. Kil'jaeden kept the shaman's spirit alive and intact, thus leaving Ner'zhul painfully aware of his body's gross dismemberment. Though Ner'zhul pleaded with the demon to release his spirit and grant him death, the demon grimly replied that the blood pact that they had made long ago was still binding, and that Ner'zhul still had a purpose to serve. The orcs' failure to conquer the world for the Burning Legion forced Kil'jaeden to create a new army to sow chaos throughout the kingdoms of the Azeroth. This new army could not be allowed to fall prey to the same petty rivalries and infighting that had plagued the Horde. It would have to be merciless and single-minded in its mission. This time, Kil'jaeden could not afford to fail. Holding Ner'zhul's spirit helpless in stasis, Kil'jaeden gave him one last chance to serve the Legion or suffer eternal torment. Once again, Ner'zhul recklessly agreed to the demon's pact. Ner'zhul's spirit was placed within a specially crafted block of diamond hard ice gathered from the far reaches of the twisting nether. Encased within the frozen cask, Ner'zhul felt his consciousness expand 10,000-fold. Warped by the demon's chaotic powers, Ner'zhul became a spectral being of unfathomable power. At that moment, the orc known as Ner'zhul was shattered forever, and the Lich King was born. Ner'zhul's loyal Death Knights and Shadowmoon followers were also transformed by the demon's chaotic energies. The wicked spellcasters were ripped apart and remade as skeletal liches. The demons had ensured that even in death, Ner'zhul's followers would serve him unquestionably. When the time was right, Kil'jaeden explained the mission for which he had created the Lich King. Ner'zhul was to spread a plague of death and terror across Azeroth that would snuff out human civilization forever. All those who died from the dreaded plague would arise as the undead, and their spirits would be bound to Ner'zhul's iron will forever. Kil'jaeden promised that if Ner'zhul accomplished his dark mission of scouring humanity from the world, he would be freed from his curse and granted a new, healthy body to inhabit. Though Ner'zhul was agreeable and seemingly anxious to play his part, Kil'jaeden remained skeptical of his pawn's loyalties. Keeping the Lich King bodiless and trapped within the crystal cask assured his good conduct for the short term, but the demon knew that he would need to keep a watchful eye on him. To this end, Kil'jaeden called upon his elite demon guard, the vampiric dreadlords, to police Ner'zhul and ensure that he accomplished his dread task. Tichondrius, the most powerful and cunning of the dreadlords, warmed to the challenge. He was fascinated by the plague's severity and the Lich King's unbridled potential for genocide. Icecrown and the Frozen Throne, from about 8 to 19 years after the opening of the Dark Portal. A lore book located in Elven Forest, Scarlet Monastery, Scholomance, Undercity, and Stratholme. Kil'jaeden cast Ner'zhul's icy cask back into the world of Azeroth. The hardened crystal streaked across the night sky and smashed into the desolate Arctic continent of Northrend. Burying itself deep within the Icecrown Glacier, the frozen crystal, warped and scarred by its violent descent, came to resemble a throne, and Ner'zhul's vengeful spirit soon stirred within it. From the confines of the Frozen Throne, Ner'zhul began to reach out his vast consciousness and touch the minds of Northrend's native inhabitants. With little effort, he enslaved the minds of many indigenous creatures, including ice trolls and fierce wendigo, and he drew their evil brethren into his growing shadow. His psychic powers proved to be almost limitless, and he used them to create a small army that he housed within Icecrown's twisting labyrinths. As the Lich King mastered his growing ability under the Dreadlord's persistent vigil, he discovered a remote human settlement on the fringe of the vast Dragonblight. On a whim, Ner'zhul decided to test his powers on the unsuspecting humans. Ner'zhul cast a plague of undeath, which had originated from deep within the Frozen Throne out into the Arctic wasteland. Controlling the plague with his will alone, he drove it straight into the human village. Within 3 days, everyone in the settlement was dead, but shortly thereafter, the dead villagers began to rise as zombified corpses. Ner'zhul could feel their individual spirits and thoughts as if they were his own. The raging cacophony in his mind caused Ner'zhul to grow even more powerful, as if their spirits provided him with much-needed nourishment. He found it was child's play to control the zombies' actions and steer them to whatever end he wished. Over the following months, Ner'zhul continued to experiment with his plague of undeath by subjugating every human inhabitant of Northrend. With his armies of undead growing daily, he knew that the time for his true test was nearing. The Battle of Grimbertoll, from about 8 to 19 years ago, a lore book located in Stormwood City, Ironforge, Wetlands, and Mulgore. Meanwhile, in the war-torn lands of the south, the scattered remnants of the Horde fought for their very survival. Though Grimhillscream and his Warsong clan managed to evade capture, Deadeye and his Bleeding Hollow clan were rounded up and placed in the internment camps in Lordaeron. Notwithstanding these costly uprisings, the camp's wardens soon re-established control over their brutish charges. However, unknown to the Alliance, a large force of orcs still roamed free in the northern wastes of Modan. The Dragonmaw clan, led by the infamous warlock Necros, was using an ancient artifact known as the Demon Soul to control the Dragon Queen Alexstrasza and her dragonflight. With the Dragon Queen as her hostage, Necros built up a secret army within the abandoned, some say cursed, Wildhammer stronghold of Grimbatol. Planning to unleash his forces and the mighty red dragons on the Alliance, Necros hoped to reunite the Horde and continue its conquest of Azeroth. His visions did not come to pass. A small group of resistance fighters, led by the human mage Ronin, managed to destroy the Demon Soul and free the Dragon Queen from Necros' command. In their fury, Alexstrasza's dragons tore Grimbatol apart and incinerated the greater bulk of the Dragonmaw clan. Necros' grand schemes of reunification came crashing down as the Alliance troops rounded up the remaining orc survivors and threw them into the waiting internment camps. The Dragonmaw clan's defeat signaled the end of the Horde and the end of the orcs' furious bloodlust. Lethargy of the Orcs, from about 8 to 19 years ago, a lore book located in Elven Forest and the Barrens. Months passed, and more orc prisoners were rounded up and placed within the internment camps. As the camps began to overflow, the Alliance was forced to construct new camps in the plains south of the Redridge Mountains. To properly maintain and supply the growing number of camps, King Tyrannus levied a new tax on the Alliance nations. This tax, along with increased political tensions over border disputes, created widespread unrest. It seemed that the fragile pact that had forged the human nations together in their darkest hour would break at any given moment. Amidst the political turmoil, many of the camp wardens began to notice an unsettling change come over their orc captives. The orcs' efforts to escape from their camps or even fight amongst themselves had greatly decreased in frequency over time. The orcs were becoming increasingly aloof and lethargic. Though it was difficult to believe, the orcs, once held as the most aggressive race ever seen on Azeroth, had completely lost their will to fight. The strange lethargy confounded the Alliance leaders and continued to take its toll on the rapidly weakening orcs. Some speculated that some strange disease contractable only by orcs brought about the baffling lethargy, but Archmage Antonidas of Delaran posed a different hypothesis. Researching what little he could find of orcish history, Antonidas learned that the orcs had been under the crippling influence of demonic power for generations. He speculated that the orcs had been corrupted by these powers even before their first invasion of Azeroth. Clearly, demons had spiked the orcs' blood, and in turn the brutes had been granted unnaturally heightened strength, endurance, and aggression. Antonidas theorized that the orcs' communal lethargy was not actually a disease, but a consequence of racial withdrawal from the volatile warlock magics that had made them fearsome, bloodlusted warriors. Though the symptoms were clear, Antonidas was unable to find a cure for the orcs' present condition. Then, too, many of his fellow mages, as well as a few notable Alliance leaders, argued that finding a cure for the orcs would be an imprudent venture. Left to ponder the orcs' mysterious condition, Antonidas' conclusion was that the orcs' cure would have to be a spiritual one. The new Horde, from about 8 to 19 years after the opening of the Dark Portal, a lore book located in Swamp of Sorrows, Stormwind City, and the Barrens. The chief warden of the internment camps, Aedelus Blackmore, watched over the captive orcs from his prison stronghold, Durnhold. One orc in particular had always held his interest, the orphaned infant he had found nearly 18 years before. Blackmore had raised the young male as a favored slave and named him Thrall. Blackmore taught the orc about tactics, philosophy, and combat. Thrall was even trained as a gladiator. All the while, the corrupt warden sought to mold the orc into a weapon. Despite his harsh upbringing, young Thrall grew into a strong, quick-witted orc, and he knew in his heart that a slave's life was not for him. As he grew to maturity, he learned about his people, the orcs whom he had never met. After their defeat, most of them had been placed in internment camps. Rumor had it that Doomhammer, the orc leader, had escaped from Lordaeron and gone into hiding. Only one rogue clan still operated in secret, trying to evade the watchful eyes of the Alliance. The resourceful yet inexperienced Thrall decided to escape from Blackmore's fortress and set off to find others of his kind. During his journeys, Thrall visited the internment camps and found his once mighty race to be strangely cowed and lethargic. Having not found the proud warriors he hoped to discover, Thrall set out to find the last undefeated orc chieftain, Grom Hillscream. Constantly hunted by the humans, Hellscream nevertheless held on to the orcs' unquenchable will to fight. Aided only by his own devoted Warsong clan, Hellscream continued to wage an underground war against the oppression of his beleaguered people. Unfortunately, Hellscream could never find a way to rouse the captured orcs from their stupor. The impressionable Thrall, inspired by Hellscream's idealism, developed a strong empathy for the Horde and its warrior traditions. Seeking the truth of his own origins, Thrall traveled north to find the legendary Frostwolf clan. Thrall learned that Gul'dan had exiled the Frostwolves during the early days of the First War. He had also discovered that he was a son and heir of the orc hero Durotan, the true chieftain of the Frostwolves, who had been murdered in the wilds nearly 20 years before. Under the tutelage of the venerable shaman Drekthar, Thrall studied his people's ancient shamanistic culture, which had been forgotten under Gul'dan's evil rule. Over time, Thrall became a powerful shaman and took his rightful place as chieftain of the exiled Frostwolves. Empowered by the elements themselves and driven to find his destiny, Thrall set off to free the captive clans and heal his race of demonic corruption. During his travels, Thrall found the aged war chief Orgrim Doomhammer, who had been living as a hermit for many years. Doomhammer, who had been a close friend of Thrall's father, decided to follow the young, visionary orc and help him free the captive clans. Supported by many of the veteran chieftains, Thrall ultimately succeeded in revitalizing the Horde and giving his people a new spiritual identity. To symbolize his people's rebirth, Thrall returned to Blackmoor's fortress of Durnhold and put a decisive end to his former master's plans by laying siege to the internment camps. The victory was not without its price. During the liberation of one camp, Doomhammer fell in battle. Thrall took up Doomhammer's legendary warhammer and donned his black plate armor to become the new war chief of the Horde. During the following months, Thrall's small but volatile horde laid waste to the internment camps and stymied the Alliance's best efforts to counter his clever strategies. Encouraged by his best friend and mentor, Grom Hillscream, Thrall worked to ensure that his people would never be slaves again. War of the Spider from about 8 to 19 years after the opening of the Dark Portal, found in Stormwind City, Scholomance, Scarlet Monastery, and Stratholme. While Thrall was liberating his brethren in Lordaeron, Ner'zhul continued to build up his power base in Northrend. A great citadel was erected above the Ashcrown Glacier and manned by the growing legions of the dead. Yet, as the Lich King extended his influence over the land, one shadowy empire stood against his power, the ancient, subterranean kingdom of Azul-Nerub, which had been founded by a race of sinister humanoid spiders, sent their elite warrior guard to attack Icecrown and end the Lich King's mad bid for dominance. Much to his frustration, Ner'zhul found that the evil Nerubians were immune not only to the plague, but to his telepathic domination as well. The Nerubian Spider Lords commanded vast forces and had an underground network that stretched nearly half the breadth of Northrend. Their hit-and-run tactics on the Lich King stronghold stymied his efforts to root them out time after time. Ultimately, Ner'zhul's war against the Nerubians was won by attrition. With the aid of the sinister Dreadlords and innumerable undead warriors, the Lich King invaded Azul-Nerub and brought its subterranean temples crashing down upon the Spider Lords' heads. Though the Nerubians were immune to his plague, Ner'zhul's growing necromantic powers allowed him to raise the Spider Warriors' corpses and bend them to his will. As a testament to their tenacity and fearlessness, Ner'zhul adopted the Nerubians' distinctive architectural style for his own fortresses and structures. Left to rule his kingdoms unopposed, the Lich King began preparing for his true mission in the world, reaching out into the human lands with his vast consciousness. The Lich King called out to any dark soul that would listen. Kel'Thuzad and the Forming of the Scourge, from about 8 to 19 years after the opening of the Dark Portal, a lore book located in Hellsbrad Foothills, Scarlet Monastery, Scholomance, Undercity, and Stratholme. There were a handful of powerful individuals scattered throughout the world who heard the Lich King's mental summons from Northrend. Most notable of them was the Archmage of Dalaran, Kel'Thuzad, who was one of the senior members of the Kirin Tor, Dalaran's ruling council. He had been considered a maverick for years due to his insistence on studying the forbidden arts of necromancy. Driven to learn all he could of the magical world and its shadowy wonders, he was frustrated by what he saw as his peers' outmoded and unimaginative precepts. Upon hearing the powerful summons from Northrend, the Archmage bent all his considerable will to communing with the mysterious voice. Convinced that the Kirin Tor was too squeamish to seize the power and knowledge inherent in the dark arts, he resigned himself to learn what he could from the immensely powerful Lich King. Leaving behind his fortune and prestigious political standing, Kel'Thuzad abandoned the ways of the Kirin Tor and left Dalaran forever. Prodded by the Lich King's persistent voices in his mind, he sold his vast holdings and stored away his fortunes. Traveling alone over many leagues of both land and sea, he finally reached the frozen shores of Northrend, intent on reaching Icecrown and offering his services to the Lich King. The Archmage passed through the ravaged, war-torn ruins of Azul-Nerub. Kel'Thuzad saw firsthand the scope and ferocity of Ner'zhul's power. He began to realize that allying himself with the mysterious Lich King would be both wise and potentially fruitful. After long months of trekking through the harsh Arctic wastelands, Kel'Thuzad finally reached the dark glacier of Icecrown. He boldly approached Ner'zhul's dark citadel and was shocked when the undead guardsmen silently let him pass, as though he was expected. Kel'Thuzad descended deep into the cold earth and found his way down to the bottom of the glacier. There, in the endless cavern of ice and shadows, he prostrated himself before the frozen throne and offered his soul to the Dark Lord of the Dead. The Lich King was pleased with his latest conscript. He promised Kel'Thuzad immortality and great power in exchange for his loyalty and obedience. Eager for dark knowledge and power, Kel'Thuzad accepted his first great mission to go into the world of men and found a new religion that would worship the Lich King as a god. To help the Archmage accomplish his mission, Ner'zhul left Kel'Thuzad's humanity intact. The aged, yet still charismatic wizard was charged with using his powers of illusion and persuasion to lull the downtrodden, disenfranchised masses of Lordaeron into a state of trust and belief. Then, once he had their attention, he would offer them a new vision of what society could be and a new figurehead to call their king. Kel'Thuzad returned to Lordaeron in disguise, and over the span of 3 years, he used his fortune and intellect to gather a clandestine brotherhood of like-minded men and women. The brotherhood, which he called the Cult of the Damned, promised its acolytes social equality and eternal life on Azeroth in exchange for their servants and obedience to Ner'zhul. As the months passed, Kel'Thuzad found many eager volunteers for his new cult among the tired, overburdened laborers of Lordaeron. It was surprisingly easy for Kel'Thuzad to achieve his goal, namely to transfer the citizens' faith in the Holy Light into belief in Ner'zhul's dark shadow. As the Cult of the Damned grew in size and influence, Kel'Thuzad made sure to hide its workings from the authorities of Lordaeron. With Kel'Thuzad's success in Lordaeron, the Lich King made the final preparations for his assault against human civilization. Placing his plague energies into a number of portable artifacts he called plague cauldrons, Ner'zhul ordered Kel'Thuzad to transport the cauldrons to Lordaeron, where they would be hidden within various cult-controlled villages. The cauldrons, protected by the loyal cultists, would then act as plague generators, sending the plague seeping out across the unsuspecting farmlands and cities of northern Lordaeron. The Lich King's plan worked perfectly. Many of Lordaeron's northern villages were contaminated almost immediately. Just as in Northrend, the citizens who contracted the plague died and arose as the Lich King's willing slaves. The cultists under Kel'Thuzad were eager to die and be raised again in their Dark Lord's service. They exulted in the prospect of immortality through undeath. As the plague spread, more and more feral zombies arose in the Northlands. Kel'Thuzad looked upon the Lich King's growing armies and named it the Scourge, for it would march upon the gates of Lordaeron and scour humanity from the face of the world. The Alliance splinters from about 8 to 19 years after the opening of the Dark Portal from the history of Warcraft. Unaware of the death cults forming in their lands, the leaders of the Alliance nations began to bicker and argue over territorial holdings and decreasing political influence. King Tyrannus of Lordaeron began to suspect that the fragile pact that they had forged during their darkest hour would not last for much longer. Tyrannus had convinced the Alliance leaders to lend money and laborers to help rebuild the southern kingdom of Stormwind, which had been destroyed during the Orcish occupation of Azeroth. The higher taxes that resulted, along with the high expense of maintaining and operating the numerous Orc internment camps, led many leaders, Gen Greymane of Gilneas in particular, to believe that their kingdoms would be better off seceding from the Alliance. To make matters worse, the High Elves of Silvermoon brusquely rescinded their allegiance to the Alliance, stating that the humans' poor leadership had led to the burning of their forests during the Second War. Tyrannus fought back his impatience and quietly reminded the elves that nothing equal to loss would have remained if not for the hundreds of valiant humans who had given their lives to defend it. Nonetheless, the elves stubbornly decided to go their own way. In the wake of the elves' departure, Gilneas and Stromgarde succeeded as well. Though the alliance was falling apart, King Tyrannus still had allies that he could count on. Both Admiral Prodmor of Kilteris and the young king Varian Wrynn of Azeroth remained committed to the alliance. Furthermore, the wizards of the Kirin Tor, led by the Archmage Antonidas, pledged Delaran's steadfast support to Tyrannus' rule. Perhaps most reassuring of all was the pledge of the mighty dwarven king, Magni Brownsbeard, who vowed that the dwarves of Ironforge would forever owe a debt of honor to the Alliance for liberating Loch Modan from the Horde's control. Where upon completing many different quests across the road of Azeroth, I am now level 20, which is one of the biggest goals that I wanted to reach in this Let's Play series, is to just explore the first 20 levels as a dwarf, and also to explore a lot of Dune Moral and Loch Modan, where I still have some stuff left in Loch Modan that I do want to do, but I thought I would take the opportunity at the end of this episode to go ahead and adventure through Dun Algaz and into the Wetlands and into Menethil Harbor, which there is a slightly higher than normal chance that I do die from this. So you probably know what's about to happen if you're watching the video right now, because it'll either say finale or not the finale in the video title. Where there is still some more that I want to do on this dwarf character, and I was kind of debating on just finishing up the little bit that I wanted to do, and then maybe doing some big grand adventure that ends in my death, similar to my undead priest, or if I should go and try to reach level 60, which I think I'm probably leaning in the former path. But if people, like a lot of people, really want me to reach level 60 on this character, I might go ahead and try to do that, and then probably fall short anyways at some point. So next episode is most likely going to be the last episode in this Let's Play series, unless a ton of people want me to really push towards 60. But we see coming up in front of us is Dun Algaz, where we have the Algaz station right here, and we can go ahead and head into the third zone that dwarves can adventure through, that many humans and gnomes and night elves come to as well. And many Horde players actually run through here as well in order to get to some different zones. But we have Mountaineer Rockgar, and we have the Algaz Gauntlet. Quest objectives: traverse Dun Algaz, kill 8 Dragonmaw scouts and 6 Dragonmaw grunts, report to Valstag Ironjaw in Menethil Harbor. So let's go ahead and begin this gauntlet, where hopefully I can survive this, because there's still a little bit more than I'm wanting to do, and I can go ahead and buff myself up there, where of course I am a Retribution Paladin, where we have Holy for healing, Protection for tanking, and Retribution for DPS. And I just unlocked the Seal of Command, which I have not yet used, so we can go ahead use it there. And then we'll have the Judgment of Command, I think is the technical name for, or Seal of Command, no, Judgment of Command, because this is the Seal of Command, which I went straight into this tunnel. And since I like to do this, I'm going to go ahead and come over here, where we can go ahead and get a nice view of the areas to come, where we have a nice ram right there, and it is raining in Wetlands, which is my favorite thing in this zone. But I love the rain in this map, and it's so atmospheric and very cool looking. But on the way to Menethil Harbor, we are going to have some challenges. For us, as a level 20 dwarf, it's not going to be too big of a challenge, but we still need to be careful, because any misstep could lead to our death, and our death, of course, is permanent in the hardcore version of World of Warcraft. So as we come out of this tunnel, let's be very careful of some orcs that are going to be up in the foothills right over here on the other side, where someone just reached level 60, so that's kind of inspirational. But we have a ton of scouts right here, and there will be some grunts further in. So let's go ahead and pull one of the scouts there. Oh, I've already made a misstep. There was a grunt hiding up in that hill. Okay, I could probably take them. I can always run away, and I'm not afraid to use my health potions right now. And let's use my stone form. So this is okay. Already bad. I should probably just go ahead and run straight away. I'm kind of tempted just to use my holy light there. There we go. Okay, we're fine. We can attack the scout now. And hopefully pull him back a little bit as he strikes us with his sword. And we do have a brand new ability called Exorcism, which deals damage to an undead or demon target, but I think we can use it against like the scouts in order to open up invalid target. I thought maybe it would be like a ranged pull we could use. We got some Redridge Goulash in our ability, so we're a little bit more powerful, and let's continue just working our way through here. Can come high up on this hill here to fight this grunt, which I do need 5 more grunts, including this one. And I see one over there, and there's a big group of them down here, which I'm kind of scared to fight, and actually looks like it's mostly scouts. But if I could maybe work my way through here and attack these few, and I know there's like a grunt that's going to be further down the gauntlet, but this is the main spot where these Dragon Maul orcs are. So let's be a little risky here and attack the scout, and we're probably going to get, yeah, we got attacked by the other scout there. But maybe I can pull this guy back enough to keep fighting him, and then we can get rid of the aggro of the scout where I see, okay, there we go. I see one player running over there that distracted me for a moment, but looks like they're still running on. And we do need to be careful about enemies spawning behind us, because we have cleared through here a decent ways, and it's taken us a few minutes in order to do that. So the enemies behind us are probably going to start spawning soon. I wonder, can I sneak up here really quickly so I can deal with this grunt first? There we go. Let's fight to this person who says kill kek ruk kaha in Orcish, whatever that means. In a way, it's kind of funny that we can't use Exorcism against orcs, because in a way they are demons because they're from like another realm or another planet. But they are indeed humanoids, and they aren't demons in the sense of the other types of demons that we can find in World of Warcraft. Okay, I'm probably going to accidentally pull... Oh, there's a chest here. Can I get this chest? Okay. Oh, this is good anyways. We got this one grunt attacking us. And then we should try to deal with that scout really quickly, and then we have a few grunts right there, which I'm kind of nervous about fighting. Okay, let's see what's inside the solid chest. Hopefully we got something good in here. And we got some gold bars and some Briarthorn. So somewhat useful items, but I'm not sure how useful they are going to be for us, especially since we are on self-found. So if you ever need Briarthorn or gold bars for anything, which is probably unlikely, it's nice to get those. Where I actually kind of both really like the idea of self-found, but I also don't in a way. I think I would enjoy self-found, but not hardcore self-found. Like just playing through the world by myself and having to get like items from different sources in order to like level up like one of my professions or something without utilizing other players. So you like really have to think about like where things are in the world and how you can get some certain items that are more unconventional methods of getting them. So like gold bars, normally a miner could mine the gold bars and then smelt them into, or mine the gold ore and then smelt them into gold bars. But then you have to think about like different ways to get the gold bars if you're not a miner. Like you have to find them in like a chest, for example, like we just did. Okay, let's kill this orc, and we are now one away for both scouts and grunts. So I think I'm going to head out of the exit because, oh, they've already respawned. That's okay. Tons of scouts, and there's a grunt up there. Okay. So let's just work our way out of here, and it looks like we have enough space right here to do some fight. Oh, there's a player up there. Level 26. Hopefully I can get to that grunt before they fight them. There's such a high level for this area. It's kind of insane. Okay. We have a scout right there. Hopefully he patrols back a little bit. Where I just really want this grunt. Okay, let's go this way. If I could hit this grunt at all, that would be phenomenal. Okay, maybe this was a bad idea. Let's go ahead, use this. Okay, this person was like AFK fighting, and now they're healing me, which is nice. Just a few more hits on this grunt, and then we will have completed all the fighting portions of this quest, which is nice. One more hit there. There we go. And let's just buff them up. And let's go ahead, eat some food, drink some milk, and that is all the fighting we need to do, so we can go ahead and continue progressing through Dun Algaz. So let's go through this tunnel here, leave all of those orcs behind us, and we can go ahead and make our way to Valstag, Ironjaw, and Menethil Harbor, where there are going to be like 1 or 2 more orcs at the end of this tunnel, if I recall correctly. And there is kind of like a skip you can make to get down faster, but I just want to play it super safe and not even like humor the idea of doing that skip. So we see 1 grunt right here, which I guess we could have just killed instead of the one that we rushed to back there. There's some rams down there, or a single ram, I suppose. So let's fight this grunt. Maybe just run down the mountain a little bit, where I really like this area of the road, where we are having a pretty big like change in verticality, where we were super high up in the mountains in Dunmorrow, and then we go down a little bit and we are in Loch Modan, and now we are going down way further, and we are going to be at sea level here in the wetlands. 1 or 2 more hits should do it. There we go. And I should probably just eat to be on the safe side. And then through here is 1 last tunnel, and we can go ahead and enter Wetlands proper, which this is just a zone that I really like a lot, which I think the zone is pretty unpopular when it comes to like the general World of Warcraft community, where a lot of people don't enjoy the wetlands, but I really enjoy it a lot. I think the quests here are fun. I think it's a good like questing experience with like some decent rewards and like pretty good questing layout, and it's just a very fun looking zone as well. But running through here, we have left Dun Algaz behind us, and we have explored all of that. So we have completed the Algaz Gauntlet, where we have traversed Dun Algaz, and now we can go ahead and make a decently long journey to get to Menethil Harbor, which is on the other side of the wetlands. Which the wetlands is a fun zone because we are currently going through the wetlands starting here in Dun Algaz and like the south central kind of eastern edge of the map, where this area over here isn't really like an explorable area that players go to, so the edge of the map is more like right here, I suppose. But basically we can go ahead and run through the wetlands this way, down this road, all the way into Menethil Harbor, which a really fun aspect of the zone is how a lot of Night Elf characters are going to be doing a very similar thing, but the exact opposite, where humans, dwarves, and gnomes would come through this way. Night Elves, where they are located in the continent of Kalimdor, all the way up here in Teldrassil and like Darkshore and Ashenvale and whatnot. In the Darkshore, we have this town of Aberdeen, where there was a boat here located in Aberdeen that would take anyone back and forth between Aberdeen and Menethil Harbor right here. So if we want to get to Night Elf areas, we have to get to Menethil Harbor, and we have to basically take that boat to Aberdeen, or there are like some other methods that we could take that are longer and potentially more dangerous. But the Night Elf characters would take that boat from Aberdeen to Menethil Harbor, and then they would run through the wetlands, which a lot of people enjoy playing a Night Elf character, but for whatever reason they don't enjoy playing in Night Elf zones. So there will be a lot of people that will create like a level 1 Night Elf, and then they'll run through the wetlands, or they'll run down the coast, and they'll try to get into like Loch Modan so they can go to Dunmorrow, or more commonly they go to Elven Forest so they can level a Night Elf into those areas. We got some more Dragon Maw Raiders over there, but level 27, level 26, level 27, so they are a lot more dangerous. And we have a young Wetlands Crocolisk, the #1 deadliest end of the Wetlands, because they often hang out on the road here, where Night Elf characters running down the road are going to die to them. But we have this nice crossroads right here, where we can take this road to Dun Moder, which then leads to the Thandos Band and the Arathi Highlands, or we can go to Menethil, or we can go back the way we came to Dun Algaz and to Loch Modan, where we have another quest to go to Menethil Harbor. And then we have Kixel, who is a Booty Bay Goblin, who is selling potions and herbs, and I'm gonna go ahead and buy those health potions or healing potions, because we could definitely use some extra health in combat sometimes in order to save our life. But looking at the wetlands, it looks like not a single shaman has died in the wetlands, which is kind of interesting. But we can see that the Wetlands Crocolisk and the young Wetlands Crocolisk have a ton of kills. They're the most dangerous and the second most dangerous enemies in the wetlands, and that is probably a little overinflated because of what I was talking about earlier. But then we also have these Bluegill Raiders, which might also be a little overinflated because a player is going down the coast here to get to Westfall. But then we got Dragon Ball Raiders, Mossad Brutes, some Leech Stalkers, which is probably also a little overinflated, and then of course a variety of players falling, including at Dunagaz, like I was kind of talking about earlier. And then, of course, 211 players have died to drowning, which is interesting. But part of me wants to make like a shaman character and make my way to the Wetlands and just die in the Wetlands, so I can be the one shaman that has died in the Wetlands according to this add-on. But what we can see in the Wetlands is basically what the entirety of the Wetlands is, where it looks a little bit different like over here near Grim Bateau, but it's just a very cool like marshy area where there are a variety of marshes, like Sundown Marsh right here, and there are crocolisks and those like fin striders and a bunch of murlocs and whatnot, and some cool quests that we can do, where I explored a ton of the Wetlands on my human mage character, where basically everything here on out on this character would basically be the same exact thing that I've done on my human mage character. Where, like I was talking about earlier, I think next episode I'm just going to do a little bit more adventuring and then maybe go on one big quest that is surely going to be the end of my life. Where if you're interested in exploring a lot of the content after the Dwarven areas, including the Wetlands, which I guess is kind of like the Dwarves' third zone, you can go ahead and watch my Human Mage Let's Play series, which I'll link down in the description. We got a cool bridge right here. A nice wooden bridge, and we're going to see a very, very cool bridge in front of us soon enough. I love these fences with that brazier right there, and then yet another wooden bridge going over this little marshy area right here. And if we look in front of us, we can see Menethil Harbor with a really, really big, cool stone bridge that we can go over. And Menethil Harbor is a pretty decently fortified area, and it's kind of like on an island, so it even has like basically like a moat around it in a way, so it has kind of like that type of fun fantasy vibe going on with it. But we can see some Menethil sentries where we've got dwarves, and we have humans here, where of course Menethil Harbor is named after the Menethil family, like Tyrannus Menethil II and Arthas Menethil, who becomes the Lich King, and it's set in Barradin Bay, which is a really interesting bay that has a lot of the human like settlements around it, including like Gilneas and Strom and then Lordran. But I don't think we really know what Barradin is named after, which it's an important like Guild Wars like family, but nothing really important in World of Warcraft, where we turned in that quest, and we are now honored with Ironforge, which is fantastic. And let's go ahead and go over here where we can turn into this other quest that I got, the daily delivery, so we can go ahead and give some Crocolis skins, I believe, to this person, where yes, bundle of Crocolis skins, and let's go ahead, get a little bit of experience and some money from that, where there are a ton of different quests around here that we can go ahead and pick up. And I love those stables right there with like the white stallion. But if we look over here, we can see the docks of Menethil Harbor, because Menethil Harbor is indeed a harbor, where we can see over here are the docks for the boat to Aberdeen, and then over here are docks to Theramore, which is really, really fun. And we can see boat to Aberdeen, boat to Theramore Isle right there. But let's make sure we get to this Griffin Master right here, so we can unlock a flight path, and we can look at our flight map, where we can go to Ironforge, Thosamar, and then the 4 human towns in the Kingdom of Stormwind that I have been to. But I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and call this episode good here, where there's a lot of stuff going on in this episode, and I hope y'all enjoyed watching it, and I hope y'all are taking good care of yourselves. Remember, as always, to drink some water, check your posture, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time in the world of Azeroth. Goodbye.